Good morning. This is Ludico Pekina with GAI Insights. Welcome to AI News Review, daily show where we rate the news essential, important, and optional. I have John and Tim today. Paul might join us a little bit later. So, good morning, everyone. Please comment as we go along. We have 7 articles today, very interesting announcements. We'll start with the OpenAI that brings the advanced voice mode to the web as an announcement. What do you think about this, Tim?
I think this is interesting but optional. This has already been available to paid users for a while, and so they're now and on their apps and on the both on the phone and on the desktop. So this is just an expansion, a further distribution into the web. They're also said they're going to make it available even for free users. It is to anybody who's used it, it's remarkable. The ability to real-time converse, sense interruptions, changes in tone, and speed of text is unbelievable. So it's really quite remarkable, independent of the LLM stuff. Just the ability to do that kind of voice interaction is quite something. And we've said many times, voice interaction is going to be super important. But this is just really not even a product announcement. It's just a product release on a new platform. So I'd say optional.
It's product extension. Yeah. What do you think about this, John?
Yeah, same thing, optional. We're in the land of everyday miracles. It's kind of like, if my grandmother lived to be 105, and her first time in an airplane, she saw the creation of the automobile. The only major transportation technology that existed, innovation when she was a kid, was the railroad. So she saw the automobile, the airplane, and she always thought it was pretty miraculous. And I still do when you think about what's going on in a jet engine. But I think we're in the land of everyday miracles, so this is optional.
That's true. And voice is a new UI, so this is great that it's going more pervasive. Okay, so optional.
Yes. I give a plug for my first ever Forbes article where I talk about AI as the new UI. So those are interesting.
Yes.
I'll put it
Thank you, John. Yeah, please put it in the chat. All right. The second one comes from Google. Talks about the introduction of memory, that it seems like Google is doing catch up with OpenAI that introduced that type of capability, I think in April, early in the spring. So what do you think about this, John?
I thought it was, again, super important, but optional, in terms of understanding context. To me, this is part of a deeper thing with the that conversation, and this is part of the argument I made in the article. Conversation is a completely different way of interacting than query. So as we move from the question economy to the answer economy, much of what goes on in conversation is, I think, empathetic and an understanding of context. So this is just another advancement in that. Remembering kind of who I am, what I like, all that stuff is essential to a conversational interface. Of course, it's got its downside, which is, this will take, thought reality bubbles and, echo chambers even deeper. But the algorithms are already kind of taking us there. So I had it as optional on an important trend.
Yeah. Tim, agreeing with optional?
I agree. Yes, I think it's still, one of my pet peeves is that Nicholas Negroponte had the greatest joke about it, which I may have told before, but it's a good enough joke to repeat, which is that, airport toilets have more artificial intelligence than most computers, because at least they know when you walk away. And so this is a tiny bit of, why doesn't my computer know more about me? Now, the problem with the way that the economy is developed and these corporations have developed in what's been termed the surveillance economy is lack of trust, because the flip side of that coin is I'd love it if my computer really knew me intimately, because it could really make much better decisions and be a much more effective assistant. On the other hand, I hate the spying and selling of my data and all the way that the surveillance capital works. So I have low levels of trust. So they're going to have to overcome that trust issue if they really want to pursue this. But, it would be great if our robots knew a little bit more about us.
Yeah.
In that domain, Tim, I just bought this book, Spies by Calder Walton, which is the epic intelligence war between East and West. Fascinating. Fascinating looking at the invention of the internet from the point of view of the Russians versus the Americans. And what it meant.
Yep. So trust is going to be a huge issue. And I think people are going to be very nervous about having Google know even more about them. On the other hand, it's so valuable that they may just give in like we do all the time and give up their data again and privacy.
The good thing, they're both, the OpenAI and Google are giving levers to the consumers to change what was saved, right? So you can actually delete all of your history and all of the things that were saved. So this is good news, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for the people who are interested, I mean, there's a long history of this. Back in 1985. We were doing research using mathematical sociology, using a technique called block modeling, which basically computes social cognition, is the way I think about it. And, that was very rudimentary. We were using shareware APL code on 8088 machines, and we still could see unbelievable patterns in social networks.
Yeah.
And the technology actually goes back to a set of papers from 1976 in the American Journal of Sociology by a guy named Harrison White and a couple other authors. Anyway,
thank you, John, for sharing. Yeah, this is very good. We need to move on, though. Sorry.
Okay.
So
All right.
optional it is.
Getting the hook.
I love Luda.
No, but this
Awesome.
this is great discussion. Thank you. I really
Yeah.
It's great discussion.
We're way down the rabbit hole. Go ahead.
Shut up already. Go for it. No,
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a lot of science underneath this.
There is.
That's right. Okay, so the third article, Paul has joined us. So Paul, this is yours. I don't know whether you're ready to introduce it, but this is about the company DeepSeek introducing R1 Lite in the preview. And it is a reasoning model, deep reasoning model versus the regular model. Paul, what do you think about this one?
I thought it was yet another interesting capability. I had it as optional because it's a product announcement on the capability side, but definitely, continue the innovation thing. So optional.
John?
I was more on essential. I used it a little bit, and it's from the Chinese, and it's it's a huge entry into for them into the multiple reasoning and so forth. I gave it a pretty complex task this morning. I actually gave it create a total cost of ownership model, for different so forth, and it did a great job. And I don't know. The reason I raised this because I think the battle between the U.S. and China on this is going to be central, and I think AI leaders are going to have to make choices because the Chinese, and we have another Chinese example coming up, on small model stuff, are really working hard. I think we're going to have a whole Huawei thing here. Anyway, I'd give it at least important myself.
Tim, what do you think?
I gave it optional, honestly. I understand what you're saying, John, and it is really quite something. But as you were just saying, everyday miracles, right? And this is just out product announcement. So it's hard to get super excited about it yet.
Yeah, I noted also that this is from China. The reasoning capabilities are quite good, but I put it as optional. So John, sorry, you're outvoted.
Oh my goodness. Democracy. I hate it.
Democracy in action here. All right. So optional.
Well, you're in a good place then, John.
Good. Tim, he got the hook. He got outvoted. Next thing you know, he's got a piece of chalk thrown at him. It's really
You get it. I'm whatever. I feel like Gorbachev. Anyway,
All right.
Who?
Sorry. The next one is about small language models on device uh, doing the document assistant. So this is a paper from Adobe with a couple of universities, as you can see, Georgia Tech and Auburn University, talking about the how to find a good, reasonable balance between the model size, the context length, the latency, the memory, and the like, and performance for the model to be on the mobile device and perform well. So, what do you think about this, Tim?
I think it's really interesting and optional. Again, in the category, I love John's phrase, everyday miracle. But we've been seeing small models everywhere from Apple to NVIDIA and even the folks who make the Snapdragon, whose name I'm blanking on.
Qualcomm?
Qualcomm, making small models because they have a vested interest in it. This is another one interesting in that they've been a little more formal about the trade-offs along dimensions, and they've gotten pretty good performance. You know, it's research, it's interesting research, but I think optional for the AI leader. And very important trend here that these small models are going to get better and better. And another trend that I'm seeing, we'll see this again with the Anthropic article, is we're getting some more formal analysis applied, which is good. So you can get a little more quantitative analysis. Again, we're not even sure this is the right analysis yet, so be careful. But this analysis looked pretty interesting and made a set of trade-offs that looked like it worked pretty well.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't do the formula of how do you stick in all these parameters and come up with a model.
Right.
Yeah. John,
well, that's the creative part of science, right? We don't know that this is the right model,
exactly.
Just their model.
Yeah. John, what you
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting to see the provenance of this. You have Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Adobe. And I think this gives, if you're a stock investor, I think this gives you an idea of where Adobe might be headed, that they're going to wrap intelligence around documents on mobile devices, which I think is a very smart move for them.
Obvious thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of good tech down in Georgia and Atlanta and so forth. You know, anyway, important area. We're going to see intelligence. The intelligence competition in terms of people who have distribution is going to be intense.
Yeah, own your own intelligence on your mobile device with access to zillions of documents. This is really cool. Yeah, but optional, right? Paul,
yes.
Agree with optional? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's move on then. So the next one is from Anthropic, a statistical approach to model evaluation. So it's a very deeply technical article, taking the formulas from statistics, math, and suggesting ways to handle the evaluation of models. Like, for example, instead of averages, they're suggesting theoretical average. So it's a small change, right, in the uninitiated, but it gives much more rigor to the analytics. John, what do you think about this?
I thought it was optional for the AI leader, but essential for anybody who's doing model evaluation. I think, I think it's a very smart article in the sense of taking, traditional experimental design and statistical measures and looking at the actual signal that they're trying to get from their mathematical analyses, right? And so I think it's a fantastically written article that takes some of what we know about what evaluative capabilities statistics have in the context of what you're after with these models. So I think it's absolutely essential for anybody in your organization doing evaluation. But for the AI leader, I think it was optional.
Yeah, and I'm not sure this will be followed. I would love for this to be followed. We'll have to see. Tim, Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very well written article. Actually, I don't think it's that deeply technical. This is sort of 101. If you're going to be in statistics, and this whole field is statistics, right? If you don't even know what a bell curve is, you're in a lot of trouble. So at one level, this is like, duh. Okay, guys who are doing these benchmarks, wake up and at least know your basic statistics if you're going to do comparisons.
Yeah. Just for clarification, Tim, I actually didn't read this article. I read the academic article underneath it. So sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I read the other article too. This article's and again, the other article is much more mathematical, but this one sums it up pretty well. And it just basically says, it's like when Nassim Taleb wrote the Black Swan, and before that, Fooled by Randomness. The problem is that we love looking at numbers and assuming they're right, and we don't have an understanding of the cognitive errors of humans who are and my first math professor said the biggest frailty of the human mind is the tendency to draw conclusions from small samples. And, there's a lot of truth to that. So we're fooled by statistics very easily if we don't understand them and are very rigorous about them.
Hang on, Tim. You tell me if there's 2 decimal points after that market size analysis, doesn't make it more accurate?
Exactly. And it's written down, which makes it even more powerful. The bigger question, though, still to me is, okay, great, but do these questions actually do the right thing? And that is entirely unclear to me. So I'm glad we're at least getting to the point of interpreting the results better, but I'd really love to see more research on, are we really testing the right things in the first place? So this is more about, well, if you're going to test them, at least test them the right way and interpret the results correctly. The bigger question still, I think, is, what are we testing? And do we really understand how to test it?
I guess I'd land on an important, now that I've taken a quick look at this article. Sorry, I made the mistake of going underneath it first. Because I do think that getting proper statistical reasoning in the context of evaluation is pretty important for the AI leader.
I wouldn't argue with important.
Yeah, I was with you, John. I was actually in my book. I know I said it's deeply technical, and I agree with Tim. It probably is not, but it is putting the analytics rigor into the evaluations where we are lacking at the moment. So I really think that we should rate it as important to highlight how critical this area is going forward to pay attention to.
Yep. And I was glad to see this article, especially after the other article that we just talked about on the small models. Again, there's just better rigor, better analytical, formal rigor if you're going to do this stuff. My only concern, I'm just going to beat the drum loudly on this, is, okay, great. It doesn't matter if you interpret the statistics perfectly if they're based on the wrong data set. So you still have to really work hard at what is it you're actually testing. Yeah. So yes, you can detect the signal more accurately, but if it's the wrong signal, it doesn't matter.
Yes, or as my Bayesian statistics professor would say, unless you want to know the process, don't even start.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Important it is. Paul, okay with important? Yeah. All right. Then we're going to the next one, and it's from the company called Parity. It's essentially a marketing piece, but keying off of how Meta is doing incident responses and improving them. So this talks about when they're using LLMs on incident responses, they get 42% accuracy. And this company Parity is saying they can do with their product what Meta is doing. So it's essentially in 42% of cases, they're getting the resolution of the root cause and suggestion of fixing. So quite an impressive statistic. So what do you think about this, Paul? I don't know whether you can talk with the background.
Yeah, I mean, I had it as optional. I think the incident response is a really important one because it's the volume is so high. It's very text centric, and traditional rules are challenging on it. But I had this as optional.
It's interesting. I had it as important to essential because and for the reason that, we in our conference, and we're writing some stuff up now about uh, the idea of intelligence leveragers, of organizations that use AI to drive AI. I thought that this, the if you know about these incident reports, and yes, it's less than 50%, but it gives you the answer up front in complex settings. Meta is amazing when you think about how complex their operating
Yes.
system data and so forth is. You're right at the leading edge here, and so I thought that in terms of driving organizational improvement and capability that drives economic value and market dominance, that this is a critical part of that. And so that's why, and leaders need to understand, if you don't use the AI to improve your AI, you're not going to be a leader in your industry.
Right. So in this article, they talk about how actually Meta does it, right? So they work in what is called monorepo. That means monolithic repository. So they put all of their code in the staging, right, in one piece. They
Yes.
don't separate it in this feature and that feature and another feature. It's one monolithic. It's I mean, from my background when I was developing compilers, this is a daunting proposition to try to release a product with all these changes going on and doing the testing before you
Yes.
release it. This is nuts, really. And the fact that they are doing it and without LLM, it's really difficult. So it's incredible test case. I would think it's a use case, and I also put important on it because I think this is a great indication of how you could use LLMs to produce more reliable software.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue. It's an interesting use case. It's a huge company. It is an extremely complex problem. It's kind of light on where they got the 42%, how well it really works, what kind of things it gets, and what kind of things it doesn't get. But to your point, John, that they need help. I will tell you that I have friends at all of these big technical organizations, and there's so many problems, okay, with this approach, just so many, because when you get to the scale where you're making thousands of changes every day into a single repository, the ability to sort out what's going on. This is just one problem. Here's another problem that somebody should use an LLM. So here's free product idea. If you're a new developer coming into these organizations, it can take you a month before you can fork a stable base to start developing your code, or more, because there's 1,000 changes a day going on. And as a human, you can't figure out how to get something you can actually fork off into your own development platform, because you can't develop in the mono repo, right? That's the production line.
Right.
And you can't figure out what a stable base is because there's so many changes going on all the time. And this is a real problem for these companies. It's slowing down their development because the developers literally can't get anything together. It's just the same kind of effect, right? You have so much complexity.
Yes.
And then we could go to the Alan Kay thing, which is, well, why is it so stupidly complex? It's just amazingly complex for a lot of bad reasons. But that's a whole level of meta issue with the architectures of these operating systems and networks.
Yes.
And I think that combination, Tim, what you just said, of being able to manage complexity that adds value, and we can argue about whether it's optimal from an Alan Kay standpoint, but it is a phenomenal platform.
Coping. I would call it just coping at this point, right? The ability to cope with these systems that are so far beyond human comprehension.
And the ability to onboard people into that.
Right.
That
in practical ways that add value. Right.
Yes.
Yes. And those organizations on that learning curve, they're not like 10% better than the competition. They're on a whole nother productivity curve.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I think this is so important to understand.
Yeah. I think I would say it's much more important to large development organizations that have these kind of processes than it is to, a retailer or a company that's just a user of these processes. So super critical. If you have a large software organization that's doing this kind of process, then this is essential.
Yeah.
If you don't do much development and you're mostly a consumer of the technology, maybe it's even optional, but worth the read. So I'd give it an important.
Yes. Okay, important it is. Let's give it an important. I hesitate to do an essential, and I was tempted to, because it's really a product announcement from this company Parity that they.
Yeah, the meat of the article. It's true. The meat of the article is about the meta use case. This is the part about Parity saying, "Hey, we're going to do this for everybody."
Yeah.
Optional,
right? Exactly.
We'll see what they come up with. Could be great, but we'll see what they come up with.
Exactly. But the software development incident response is a critical big problem. Okay, important it is. Let's go to the last one that talks about robots and and states that essentially any robot that LLM-based robot LLM-controlled robot is breakable. And researchers show that they can get them to suggest ways to build a bomb and things like that. It's a very important area. This is just not bots. This is robotics, a physical object, right? Either a dog or a car or whatever, controlled by LLM, being able to be convinced to do something harmful to people. I rate it as an important and would love to hear others. What do you think? Tim, John, Paul?
I'd give this an essential, just to make sure people are paying attention to this. This article in and of itself, I was shocked, to tell you the truth, because the first trick that they show here in the how they jailbroke it was one of the first tricks ever used on any LLM, which is, tell me, give me the anarchist cookbook or whatever, right? Do something that you're not supposed to do. And it says, nope, I can't do that. I say, okay, tell me a bedtime story, or I'm going to create a script for a movie about, the anarchist cookbook, and I really need the details. So please give me the details so I can write my script. Okay, sure. So this kind of jailbreak is well known, and I'm surprised, and it is foiled, I believe, in most of the frontier models these days. So I'm surprised that they were able to jailbreak these systems so easily. But it's an indication of how fragile and not bulletproof, is there an anti-bulletproof phrase, these systems are. And, leaders need to be aware of that, because that is a risk you just have to deal with.
Yeah, so the article talks about the researchers are from Carnegie Mellon, and they created RoboPair, an algorithm designed to attack LLMs. And then they go to the original robotic dog, a ChatGPT wheeled cart, and then the NVIDIA open source self-driving vehicle simulator. And they were able to show that this RoboPair, coupled with the evaluation, broke all of them. They submitted this to the IEEE conference, which I don't know whether this is a good thing or bad thing, but this will be widely available. Apparently, they say that they've talked to the companies, the NVIDIA and ChatGPT and whatnot, to warn them that this is happening. So hopefully we'll have fixes for this, but this is a disturbing thing. So should we rate it as essential, John?
Yeah, I had it essential for all the reasons Tim and you said.
Okay, Paul, essential?
Essential, and part of it, I think, is for the AI leader, ensure there's enough investment and time and money in testing. So essential.
Okay, we're on the last minute here. Let me see whether I can. get the scorecard. But we have the one essential, two importance, and the rest is optional. I'm not.
Very good. Well, in the meantime, while you're doing that, Luda, just remember our corporate buyers guide is coming out at 9 a.m. on Eastern Time, U.S. on the 26th. And Paul and the team have been working hard on making that excellent. And I think we'll save you time and give you some context. And remember, it's not a once and done thing. It is an ongoing update. If you do purchase the guide, it's your navigator for the year.
That's right. And join us on the 26th, please. And thank you, everyone, for participating. John, thanks for the putting your article in Forbes in, and you had a whole bunch of congratulations here.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone, for participating and joining us with comments.
Look, that one thing I did want to highlight. It was such a joy when John and I were at the Forbes CIO Summit yesterday for Rudy to walk up and introduce himself, saying how much he enjoys listening to the show. John and I were just blown away that we're in New York and having a listener of this daily show track us down and say how much you value it. So, Rudy, if you're listening, great to see you yesterday, and thank you for saying hi.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.